New York never slept. Even at 6:30 a.m., Manhattan's glass towers reflected ambition, pressure, and quiet cruelty. Sarah Mitchell stood outside Harrington and Co., holding a cardboard coffee cup she hadn't touched. Cold air cut through her coat, but she barely noticed. Her other hand rested unconsciously on her stomach, fingers spread protectively. 8 weeks pregnant. The word still felt unreal in her head. She had rehearsed this morning 100 times while getting ready. I'll tell my manager calmly, I'll assure him my performance won't drop, I'll remind him of my numbers, I'll show confidence. Sarah had always believed results spoke louder than anything else. She wasn't weak, she wasn't careless, she wasn't emotional at work. She was one of the top financial analysts in the firm. Or, at least, she used to be. Inside the building, everything looked exactly the same. Polished marble floors reflected the ceiling lights. The reception desk gleamed. A massive digital screen scrolled stock prices in green and red. People moved fast. Phones rang. Laptops opened and closed. Life continued. But something felt wrong the moment she stepped in. "Sarah," the receptionist said hesitantly, her voice lower than usual, "HR asked you to go straight to conference room B." Sarah paused. HR never called meetings this early, not without notice. She forced a small smile and nodded. "Thanks." As she walked toward the elevators, she noticed a few coworkers glance at her and quickly look away. Whispers stopped when she passed. Her heartbeat grew louder with every step. Conference room B was tucked away from the main floor. No windows, no warmth. When Sarah entered, the room felt colder than the hallway. At the long table sat Mark Reynolds, her department head, and Linda Shaw from HR. 2 glasses of water were already placed neatly in front of them. Neither stood up to greet her. "Please, sit," Linda said, folding her hands together. Sarah sat slowly, placing her bag at her feet. Mark cleared his throat. "Sarah, this won't take long." Something in his tone made her stomach tighten. Linda slid a thin folder across the table. "We've decided to terminate your position, effective immediately." The words didn't register at first. Terminate? Effective immediately? Sarah stared at Linda, waiting for more, waiting for context, waiting for logic. I don't understand," she said finally. "My last evaluation was strong, very strong." Mark interrupted quickly. Sarah felt a small rush of relief that vanished just as fast. "But the company is going through restructuring." Her fingers curled slightly against the chair. "Restructuring?" she repeated. "I just led the Phoenix acquisition. We broke quarterly records. The board personally." Linda smiled politely, a practiced smile, one Sarah had seen many times in meetings that ended badly for someone else. "This decision isn't about performance." Sarah swallowed. Silence filled the room, thick and uncomfortable. Then she said it, quietly, carefully. "I told Mark yesterday that I'm pregnant." For a split second, no one spoke. The air changed. Mark leaned back in his chair before he realized what he was doing. "This is exactly why," he said, then stopped. Linda's eyes widened. Sarah's breath caught. "Why, what?" she asked. Mark exhaled sharply and straightened. "What I meant is," he said, choosing his words now, "pregnancy changes priorities. Long hours, travel, stress. This role demands full commitment." Sarah stared at him. "I've handled pressure for 7 years here. I've worked nights, weekends, holidays. I never missed a deadline." Linda slid another paper forward. "This is a severance agreement," she said smoothly. "Sign it, and we'll provide 3 months' pay." Sarah looked down at the paper. Her name was already printed. Her termination date was listed as today. No warning, no transition, no chance to prepare. "You can't do this," Sarah said slowly. "This is illegal." Mark stood up, placing his hands on the table. "We're offering you an easy exit, Sarah. Don't make this difficult." Easy exit. The phrase echoed in her head. Something broke inside her then. Not loudly, not in tears, just quietly. Years of loyalty, long nights, and missed birthdays suddenly felt stupid. Sarah stood up. "I won't sign this." Linda sighed, as if disappointed. "Security will escort you out." That was it. No apology, no explanation, no humanity. By the time Sarah reached her desk, a security guard stood nearby, pretending not to stare. Her computer was already locked. Her access badge no longer worked. She packed her things into a cardboard box, a framed photo from a team dinner, a notebook filled with calculations, a coffee mug with the company logo. 7 years of her life fit into a box. Snow had started falling by the time she stepped onto the sidewalk. New York moved around her as if nothing had happened. People laughed, taxis honked, someone complained loudly on the phone. No one noticed the woman standing still, holding a box and a future that suddenly felt fragile. That night, Sarah sat alone in her small apartment. Bills covered the kitchen table. Her phone buzzed with an automatic termination email. No personal message. No thank you. She sat on the couch for a long time without turning on the lights. Then she placed her hand on her stomach. "I don't know how," she whispered into the silence, "but I promise you one thing. They will regret this." The next morning, Sarah didn't update her LinkedIn. She didn't send angry emails. She didn't call anyone from work. She simply stopped existing in their world. Weeks passed, then months. To Harrington & Co., Sarah Mitchell was just another name removed from payroll, another file archived, another problem solved. They never wondered where she went. They never imagined that 3 years later she would walk back into that same building, not as an employee, but as an owner. The first year was the hardest. Sarah didn't realize how loud silence could be until she was living inside it. Mornings had no alarms anymore, no meetings, no urgency, just responsibility. She woke up before sunrise every day, not because she had to, but because anxiety wouldn't let her sleep. Her apartment in Queens felt smaller with every passing week. The city outside kept moving forward while her life felt paused. Doctor appointments replaced boardroom meetings. Medical bills replaced performance bonuses. Every dollar mattered now. When her daughter was born on a cold October night, Sarah held her close and felt fear wrap around her chest. She named her Lily. Lily's tiny fingers curled around Sarah's hand as if asking for a promise. "I'll figure it out," Sarah whispered, though she had no idea how. There was no paid leave, no corporate safety net, just survival. Sarah applied for jobs while nursing Lily late at night. Remote roles, contract work, anything. Most companies never replied. Some interviews ended politely once pregnancy and termination came up. Others ended abruptly. She stopped expecting fairness. She started expecting reality. When Lily slept, Sarah worked. She offered freelance financial analysis online for small businesses that couldn't afford big firms. The pay was low, but it was honest. She worked from her kitchen table with spreadsheets open and a baby monitor beside her laptop. Some nights, exhaustion blurred the numbers on the screen, but she kept going. She noticed something quickly. Most of her clients didn't fail because they lacked money. They failed because they made emotional decisions without data. Sarah didn't just calculate anymore, she advised. Cash flow corrections, debt restructuring, risk planning. Clients began listening. One client turned into two, two into 5. Slowly, referrals followed. She registered a small LLC under her own name. No office, no employees, just legal permission to exist. Months turned into a year. Lily learned to walk between spreadsheets and late-night calls.
Her first word wasn't "mama," it was "up." Sarah smiled through the exhaustion. At night, when the city finally quieted down, Sarah studied. Not because anyone asked her to, because knowledge felt like safety. She learned how investors really thought, how companies were valued, how ownership mattered more than salary. She stopped chasing jobs. She started building leverage. The second year brought a shift. One of her earliest clients, a struggling fintech startup, asked her to stay on as an advisor instead of a contractor. "We can't pay much, but we can offer equity," the founder said. Sarah didn't answer immediately. Equity meant risk. It also meant power. She accepted. She invested what little savings she had. For months, nothing happened. Then the startup grew. Then it stabilized. Then it attracted attention. The acquisition happened quietly. When the final paperwork came through, Sarah stared at the number on her screen for a long time. 7 figures. Not salary, not bonus, ownership. She closed her laptop and sat in silence. No celebration, no calls, just relief. The third year was different. Sarah didn't change her lifestyle. She didn't move into a better apartment. She didn't announce her success. She remembered how quickly stability could be taken away. Instead, she joined an investment firm as a silent partner. No public profile, no spotlight. She observed. She learned how companies fell apart from the inside. Poor leadership, legal exposure, weak boards. One evening, while reviewing a portfolio report, a familiar name appeared on her screen. Harrington and Company. The same company that had erased her with a single meeting. The numbers weren't strong. Investor confidence was fragile. Legal risks lingered beneath the surface. Sarah leaned back in her chair. Across the room, Lily sat on the floor drawing with crayons. "What are you making?" asked Sarah. "A big building," Lily said without looking up, "and Mommy is at the top." Sarah watched her for a long moment. She didn't feel anger anymore. She felt calm, focused, prepared. The city outside still didn't know her name. Harrington and Company didn't know her location, and that was exactly how Sarah wanted it. Because some comebacks aren't loud, they're patient.
The first share was the hardest, not because it was expensive, but because it was emotional. Sarah bought it quietly through a private investment channel, using a holding company that carried no trace of her name. Just a number, just paperwork. No one noticed. Harrington and Co. had bigger problems to worry about. Market pressure was growing. Competitors were moving faster. Investors were nervous. Sarah watched from a distance. Every quarter report told her more than she needed to know. Weak leadership decisions, short-term thinking, the same arrogance that had once pushed her out. She didn't rush. She bought another small portion months later, then another. Always quietly, always legally. Ownership grew without attention. Inside Harrington and Co., Mark Reynolds was struggling. Targets were missed. The board was asking questions. Linda Shaw's HR department was dealing with complaints and compliance reviews. The culture was cracking. Sarah saw it all on paper. She never smiled. This wasn't revenge fueled by anger. It was correction fueled by patience. By the end of the third year, her holding group owned enough to matter. Not enough to control, but enough to be heard. The invitation arrived on a Tuesday morning. A formal email. Board meeting request. Sarah read it twice. She closed her laptop and looked at Lily, now older, sitting at the kitchen table doing homework. "I'll be back late today," Sarah said. Lily nodded. "Don't forget, you promised pizza." Sarah smiled. "I won't." The building hadn't changed.
Same marble floors, same polished walls. But this time, Sarah walked in without hesitation. No security escort, no cardboard box. A badge with her name waited at reception. Investor. Boardroom doors opened slowly. The room fell silent. Mark Reynolds looked up first, his face drained of color. Linda Shaw's smile disappeared. Sarah took her seat calmly, placing her folder on the table. "Good afternoon," she said. "Thank you for inviting me." No one spoke. Mark finally found his voice. "Sarah?" he said, confused. What is this?" Sarah met his eyes. "I represent a holding group with a significant stake in this company, and I requested this meeting." A board member cleared his throat. "We weren't informed of this ownership change." Sarah nodded. "That's not unusual." Silence returned. She opened her folder. "These numbers," she said, sliding copies across the table, "show a pattern of poor decisions over the last 3 years." Mark shifted in his chair. Linda stared at the papers without touching them. Sarah continued. "There are also unresolved legal risks related to employment practices," she added calmly. Mark's jaw tightened. The room felt smaller. "I'm not here to be emotional. I'm here to protect my investment." She paused. "And to improve this company." No one argued. They couldn't, because she was right. The meeting ended without raised voices, without drama, but everything had changed. As Sarah walked out of the building later that evening, the city lights reflected in the glass exactly as they had 3 years ago. The difference was simple. She wasn't leaving this time. She was arriving.